Welcome to a deep dive into the world of Dan Winter. We're exploring some pretty wild concepts about consciousness and bliss, and even the possibility of extraterrestrial contact, all based on an interview with this fascinating researcher.
What's so intriguing about Dan Winter is his knack for connecting these seemingly totally disparate ideas.
Yeah.
He views consciousness and bioelectricity and sacred geometry as interconnected parts of a greater whole.
Yeah, he's certainly not shy about pushing those boundaries of conventional thought, and that's what makes this deep dive so captivating. We're grappling with questions like, what does it mean to implode capacitance in your body? Could goosebumps actually be a sign of those eureka moments, like those sudden insights?
Right.
And why does Dan Winter say that hospitals might actually hinder what he calls successful death?
Yeah, we'll also kind of delve into the potential role of lucid dreaming and the evolution of consciousness. And we're going to explore a rather unusual connection Winter draws between the iron in our blood and our capacity for, experiencing bliss. And we'll even touch upon this idea that certain extraterrestrial beings might be particularly drawn to humans who can lucid dream.
Sounds like we're about to embark on a journey through some truly uncharted territory.
Absolutely. And remember, this is your deep dive. So as we navigate this fascinating landscape of ideas, think about what resonates with you, what sparks your curiosity, and what aspects you might want to delve into further on your own.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
One of the first things that caught my attention was Dan Winter's idea of peacemaking as an actual physical phenomenon.
Right.
He talks about the conductivity of magnetism in the soil, the flow of underground water, almost as if peace has a tangible presence in the environment.
It's a really interesting concept, right? What he's suggesting is that the magnetic array of a region can be disrupted by things like war or conflict. And this disruption affects not only the physical environment, but also the emotional connections between people.
So it's like war literally messes with the planet's energy field, and that has a ripple effect on everyone.
Exactly. He even goes so far as to suggest that restoring that magnetic array could actually help to restore peace, almost like a form of geomagnetic peacemaking.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Dan Winter links goosebumps, like those chills you get sometimes, to something he calls imploding capacitance.
Yeah.
He claims it's a sign of a eureka moment, a moment of profound insight or discovery.
To break that down a bit, what he's saying is that when you have a thought that deeply resonates with you, a thought that feels truly shareable, it creates a kind of electrical implosion in your aura.
Okay.
And that's what causes goosebumps.
So it's like our bodies are mini capacitors, and a powerful, shareable thought creates a surge of energy that literally makes us tingle.
Right.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly is a novel way to look at it, isn't it? Think about a time when you've had that happen. Maybe you're having a conversation or you suddenly understand something in a new way and you get chills. It's almost like a physical validation that you're onto something.
Oh, I've definitely felt that before. It's a really powerful sensation. And Winter's suggesting that it's not just a subjective feeling, but an actual measurable energy phenomenon.
Precisely. He sees it as a tangible manifestation of the interconnectedness between our thoughts and our emotions and the energy fields around us.
Now, he then goes on to talk about death
And
and suggests that hospitals, with all their electromagnetic fields and metal structures, actually hinder what he calls successful death. It seems like a rather unsettling claim. What does he even mean by that?
This is where Winter's ideas start to kind of push the boundaries of conventional thinking.
Yeah.
He defines successful death as being able to consciously inhabit a larger energetic array after physical death, sort of like emerging with a universal consciousness.
Wait, so if hospitals disrupt this successful death, what does he suggest as an alternative?
He believes that dying in nature, where magnetic lines intersect, allows for a smoother transition and the potential for retaining memory.
So he's suggesting that hospitals with all their technology might be blocking our connection to this larger field of consciousness at the moment of death. It's a pretty bold statement.
He argues that those artificial fields created by technology disrupt the natural energetic processes that he believes are essential for a smooth transition.
Right.
He contrasts this with dying in a natural environment, where he believes the Earth's magnetic fields help to facilitate the transfer of consciousness into a larger array.
He even mentions taking photographs of people who have died and seeing a kind of ghost image, leaving the body in natural settings but not in hospitals. Is there any scientific evidence to support this?
That's a claim that would certainly require further investigation, and there's no widely accepted scientific proof to back it up. However, it raises some, thought-provoking questions about the role of our environment in the death process and what might happen to our consciousness after we die.
It definitely makes you wonder. Okay, then he introduces this idea of lucid dreaming as a kind of training ground for navigating what happens after death.
Exactly. Winter believes that lucid dreaming allows us to consciously explore what he calls the longitudinal array, a concept that sounds pretty similar to the idea of like the collective unconscious or ancestral memory.
Hold on, could you elaborate on that longitudinal array concept? What exactly is it?
Think of it as like a cosmic internet connecting all consciousness.
Okay.
Almost like the Akashic Records, but with an electromagnetic twist.
Okay.
He believes it's a vast repository of information and energy that we can tap into. He argues that if you can learn to navigate this array while you're dreaming, you'll be better equipped to do so after death.
So it's like lucid dreaming gives you the skills to maintain your consciousness as you transition to that larger field. That's fascinating. He even suggests that the ability to lucid dream might be a marker of, like, advanced consciousness.
He does, and he points to indigenous cultures, which often have strong traditions of lucid dreaming as evidence. He suggests that their connection to the land and their spiritual practices have helped them develop this ability.
Okay, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this connection he makes between the iron in our blood and the ability to experience bliss. How does that work?
This is where Winter's ideas really start to venture into like uncharted territory. He claims that the iron in our blood acts like a lightning rod, allowing us to hold more lightning, which he equates to bliss.
That's a pretty bold claim.
Yeah.
Is there any scientific research that supports this connection? Or is this mainly based on Dan Winter's interpretations?
It's important to note that this idea hasn't been scientifically validated in any conventional sense.
Yeah.
It's more of an intuitive leap on his part.
Okay.
However, it's an interesting thought experiment, isn't it?
Yeah.
To consider that our capacity for joy and bliss might be tied to something as fundamental as the iron in our blood.
It definitely makes you wonder. He even suggests that a lack of bliss can contribute to health problems.
He does. He argues that when we're in a blissful state, our energy is flowing freely, and this allows us to hold more charge, literally like a battery.
Okay.
He believes that this increased charge is essential for health and vitality, and conversely, that a lack of bliss can lead to stagnation and even illness. He even links it to conditions like arthritis, suggesting that a lack of bliss can cause our bodies to literally stiffen up.
So bliss is like a supercharger for our bodies, and iron is the key ingredient. I'm not sure about the science behind it, but I like the idea.
It certainly challenges conventional medical wisdom.
Yeah.
But it does raise the question of how our emotional state might be connected to our physical health in ways we're only beginning to understand.
All right, now for the really big question. Aliens. Where do they fit into this picture? Why would they be interested in lucid dreamers?
Well, Dan Winters suggests that certain extraterrestrial beings, particularly those referred to as greys, are very interested in humans who have the ability to lucid dream.
Why would aliens care about our dreams?
He claims that indigenous populations, specifically because of their connection to the land and their propensity for lucid dreaming, are of particular interest to these beings.
It's like he's saying they see lucid dreaming as a sign of advanced consciousness, and perhaps these ETs are looking for humans who have developed this ability.
He doesn't delve into specifics about why these ETs might be interested,
Right.
but he implies they may be looking for something in our DNA or our consciousness, perhaps believing that individuals who can lucid dream hold the key to unlocking something crucial, either for themselves or for humanity as a whole.
This is all getting pretty deep. It sounds like we're talking about a cosmic battle for consciousness.
In a way, yes. Winter seems to view the abilities to experience profound bliss and lucid dream as markers of advanced consciousness. And he suggests there are forces, both human and possibly extraterrestrial, vying for control of this power.
He even mentions the importance of teaching children how to lucid dream and cultivate bliss as a way of empowering future generations. Contrasting this with our current focus on artificial intelligence, which he views as a dead end, a path that leads away from true consciousness.
It's like he's saying, we need to choose between a future where we merge with machines or a future where we unlock the full potential of our own consciousness.
Right.
And the choice we make, he believes, will determine the fate of humanity.
This is heavy stuff. So to recap, we've got peacemaking, goosebumps, death. lucid dreaming, bliss, and aliens, all connected by these ideas of energy and consciousness.
And it all circles back to this concept of implosion that Winter keeps returning to.
Right.
He believes that when energy flows in a centripetal inward spiral, it creates a kind of coherence and order that is fundamental to life and consciousness. He sees this implosion happening at all levels, from the subatomic to the cosmic. He even connects it to the structure of DNA and the way galaxies are formed.
Wow, that's a pretty grand vision. It's like he's saying that this principle of implosion is the driving force behind creation itself.
Exactly. And he believes that by understanding and harnessing this principle, we can unlock the true potential of human consciousness.
Okay, now let's get into some of the specific details from the source material. He mentioned something called the Adam-Cadman experiment, which sounds pretty intriguing. What's that all about?
That's right. He describes it as an experiment where 22 different extraterrestrial species were combined to create a being with the capacity for greater bliss.
Wait, 22 different extraterrestrial species? That's wild. So this being called Adam-Cadman was the result of like a deliberate effort to engineer a hybrid with the potential to hold more lightning or bliss, as Winter puts it.
That's what he suggests. He even links it to the transition from green chlorophyll-based blood to red iron-based blood, implying that iron played a key role in allowing humans to experience those higher levels of bliss.
So we're walking around like lightning rods for bliss thanks to our iron-rich blood.
Right.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. But how does this Adam-Cadman experiment tie into his ideas about lucid dreaming and extraterrestrial contact?
Well, he doesn't explicitly connect those dots.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to consider how the ability to experience heightened bliss might make humans more attractive to certain ET groups.
Right.
Remember, he mentioned the Greys specifically, suggesting they were particularly drawn to humans with indigenous ancestry, possibly because of their connection to the Earth and their propensity for lucid dreaming.
Yeah, and he even hinted that these ETs might have been trying to extract something from these individuals.
Right.
Whether it was their DNA, their energy, or maybe even their knowledge.
It's a rather unsettling thought, but it makes you wonder, what is it about those who can experience heightened bliss and navigate the realms of lucid dreaming that might pique the interest of beings from other worlds?
All right, I need a moment to process all of this. It's like we've gone from talking about the science of peacemaking to a potential cosmic battle for consciousness.
It's definitely a lot to unpack, but I think it all comes back to that core idea of implosion that Winter talks about. He believes that when energy flows inward in a specific spiral pattern, it creates a kind of order and coherence that's essential for life and consciousness.
Okay.
He sees this happening at all levels, from the subatomic to the cosmic.
He even connects it to the structure of DNA and the way galaxies are formed. It's like he's saying that this principle of implosion is the fundamental blueprint of creation itself.
Exactly, and he believes that by understanding this principle and learning to harness it, we can unlock the true potential of human consciousness.
Okay, to make sure I'm following all of this, let's go back to the beginning. Dan Winter talked about the work of a researcher named Phil Callahan.
Right.
What was that all about?
Right, he mentioned Phil Callahan, who studied soil magnetism.
Okay.
Callahan found that villages where the soil conducted magnetism well tended to be more peaceful, while those with poorly conducting soil had higher rates of conflict.
So it's almost as if the Earth's magnetism itself is somehow influencing human behavior.
That's the idea. And Winter takes it even further, suggesting that the magnetic array of a region can be disrupted by things like war,
Yeah.
which then further disrupts the flow of underground water and weakens the magnetic connection between people, potentially perpetuating the cycle of conflict.
It's like he's saying that peacemaking isn't just about treaties and diplomacy. It's about restoring the Earth's energy.
Right, and he even suggests that techniques for restoring that magnetic array could help bring rainfall back to drought-stricken areas.
Now that's fascinating. What about the goosebumps connection? He gave a pretty interesting example of what triggers that imploding capacitance feeling.
He described a moment when someone has a thought that's truly shareable, a thought that resonates with a kind of universal truth.
Okay.
He uses the term eureka, like that flash of insight when you suddenly discover something new and profound.
And he links it to the concept of chi, or life force, suggesting that goosebumps are a sign of increased energy flow in the body.
It's almost as if the universe itself is trying to jump into you when you have that kind of thought, and the resulting electrical implosion in your aura creates that tingling sensation.
Okay, so let's move on to his ideas about death. He had some pretty strong opinions about hospitals and how their environment might interfere with what he calls successful death. Could you break that down a bit more?
He argues that hospitals, with all their electromagnetic fields and metal structures, create an environment that's the antithesis of what's needed for this successful death he talks about.
Okay.
He believes those artificial fields created by technology disrupt the natural energetic processes of dying.
And instead of being surrounded by machines and artificial energy, he thinks people should be in a natural environment where their consciousness can more easily merge with the larger field.
That's what he suggests. He contrasts this with dying in nature, where he believes the Earth's magnetic fields help to facilitate the transition of consciousness into that larger array he talked about earlier.
He even talked about those photos of people who have died and mentioned seeing a kind of ghost image leaving the body in natural settings, but not in hospitals. Is there any scientific basis for that claim?
It's a very interesting claim, but it hasn't been scientifically proven.
Right.
However, it does raise some compelling questions about the role of the environment in the dying process and the potential influence it might have on what happens to our consciousness after death.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about lucid dreaming. Why does Dan Winter seem to think it's so important?
He calls it a form of training for death and suggests that it could be key to retaining memories after death. He believes that by learning to consciously navigate that longitudinal array, which he describes as a sort of collective unconscious or ancestral memory, we can develop the skills to maintain our consciousness during the transition into the afterlife.
So it's almost like lucid dreaming offers a glimpse into that other realm and helps us prepare for that journey.
That's the idea. And he also suggests that the ability to lucid dream could be a marker of advanced consciousness, pointing to indigenous cultures with strong lucid dreaming traditions as evidence.
Right.
He believes their deep connection to the land and their spiritual practices have helped them develop this ability.
Okay, I think I'm starting to grasp the connection he's drawing between our physical bodies and our spiritual potential. But that iron bliss connection still has me a bit puzzled. How does he explain that?
This is where Winter's ideas get really interesting. He claims that the iron in our blood acts like a lightning rod, allowing us to hold more lightning, which he equates to bliss. He even suggests that a lack of bliss can lead to a decrease in that charge, potentially contributing to health problems like arthritis.
So if you're not feeling blissful, your iron levels might be low, and that can cause your body to stiffen up. Is there any way to test this theory?
It's important to remember that this hasn't been scientifically validated.
Right.
It's more of an intuitive interpretation.
Okay.
However, he links it to the idea that when we're in a blissful state, our energy is flowing freely, and this allows us to hold more charge like a battery. He believes this increased charge is crucial for health and vitality.
So bliss is like a supercharger for our bodies, and iron is the key ingredient.
Right.
It's a unique way of looking at things.
It definitely challenges conventional medical wisdom.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to consider how our emotional state might influence our physical well-being in ways we haven't fully explored yet.
All right, let's circle back to the aliens. Why does Dan Winter think they'd be interested in lucid dreamers?
He claims that certain extraterrestrial beings, particularly those referred to as greys, are fascinated by humans who can lucid dream. He believes they see it as a sign of advanced consciousness and may be seeking individuals who have developed this ability.
And he's specifically mentioned indigenous populations, suggesting that their connection to the earth and their propensity for lucid dreaming make them particularly interesting to these beings.
Right.
It's almost as if he's saying these ETs are seeking something specific within our consciousness, perhaps something we haven't fully tapped into yet.
Right. He implies that they might be looking for something in our DNA or our consciousness, perhaps believing that those who can lucid dream hold the key to unlocking something important, either for themselves or for humanity as a whole.
This is starting to feel like something straight out of a science fiction movie. Are we talking about a potential cosmic battle for consciousness?
It's a provocative idea, isn't it? Winter sees the ability to experience deep bliss and to lucid dream as indicators of a heightened level of consciousness.
Right.
And he suggests there may be forces at play, both human and possibly extraterrestrial, competing for control over this power.
He even mentioned the importance of teaching children how to lucid dream and cultivate bliss, suggesting it could be crucial for empowering future generations. He contrasted this with our current emphasis on artificial intelligence, which he sees as a dead end leading away from true consciousness.
It's as if he's urging us to choose between a future where we merge with technology and a future where we unlock the full potential within ourselves.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. from the science of peacemaking to the potential for extraterrestrial contact. Before we wrap things up, there's one last detail I wanted to touch on. He mentioned something called the hypnagogic state. What's that all about?
Ah, yes, the hypnagogic state.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating state of consciousness that occurs as we drift off to sleep. It's that liminal zone where our waking thoughts start to blend with dream imagery.
And he said that people often experience visions and downloads of information during this state.
It's a time when the conscious mind is relaxed and the subconscious is more accessible. It's like a fertile ground for creativity and insight.
He even suggested it could be a key to accessing that longitudinal array and connecting with other realms of consciousness.
Exactly. It's as if the veil between worlds becomes thinner as we enter that state of hypnagogia.
Well, my mind is officially blown. This deep dive has taken us to some unexpected places. It's a lot to absorb.
It certainly is. Dan Winter's ideas might not all be scientifically proven, but they offer a unique and thought-provoking perspective on the nature of reality and consciousness.
They remind us that there's still so much we don't understand about consciousness and energy and the interconnectedness of all things.
And perhaps most importantly, they encourage us to consider the possibility that we have a far greater potential than we might realize.
That's a great point. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's circle back to some of the specific details he mentioned. For instance, when talking about peacemaking, he referenced the concept of underground water veins and how they're connected to the Earth's magnetic field.
Right. He believes that these underground water veins, they act as conduits for magnetic energy. And when those flows are disrupted, it can create imbalances in the environment, even contribute to social unrest.
It's like he's saying that the health of the planet's energy field is directly tied to our well-being as individuals and as a society.
That's a core principle in his thinking. He believes that everything is interconnected at an energetic level.
Okay, so we've talked about peacemaking and goosebumps. Let's dive back into his ideas about death. One thing that really stood out to me was his claim that hospitals, with all their technology, actually make it harder for us to connect with that larger field of consciousness at the moment of death.
Yeah, he believes that the artificial electromagnetic fields generated by technology, they disrupt the natural flow of energy that occurs during the dying process.
Okay.
He suggests that this interference, makes it more difficult for our consciousness to transition smoothly into that larger energetic array he described.
And he contrasted that with the idea of dying in nature, surrounded by the Earth's natural magnetic fields, which he believes help to facilitate that transition.
Right.
He even went so far as to say that hospitals are the opposite of successful death, suggesting that they create an environment that hinders our ability to consciously merge with the universal consciousness he believes awaits us. Okay, now I want to touch on lucid dreaming again. He seems to believe that it's a key to unlocking greater consciousness and maybe even navigating the afterlife.
Yeah, he calls it a form of a training for death, suggesting that by learning to consciously navigate the dream state, we can develop the skills necessary to maintain awareness and continuity of consciousness as we transition out of our physical bodies.
He also talked about the longitudinal array, that vast network of interconnected consciousness. How does lucid dreaming factor into that?
He believes that through lucid dreaming, we can tap into that longitudinal array and access a wealth of knowledge and wisdom that's not available to our ordinary, waking consciousness.
It's like he's suggesting that lucid dreaming gives us a glimpse into a hidden dimension of reality, a dimension that's normally obscured from our everyday perception.
Yeah, he even suggests that the ability to lucid dream might be a marker of advanced consciousness, pointing to indigenous cultures that have strong traditions of lucid dreaming as evidence.
Okay, and then there's that fascinating, albeit a bit unconventional connection he draws between iron in our blood and our capacity for experiencing bliss. Could you unpack that one more time?
Yeah, he claims that the iron in our blood allows us to hold more lightning, which he equates to bliss. He even suggests that a lack of bliss can lead to a decrease in this charge, potentially contributing to health problems.
So he's basically saying that bliss is like an energetic supercharge, and iron is the key ingredient.
Right.
I've never heard it explained that way before.
It's definitely a unique perspective. He links it to the idea that when we're in a blissful state, our energy is flowing freely, and this allows us to hold a higher charge, almost like a battery.
Okay, and how does all of this relate to his ideas about extraterrestrial contact? Why does he think that some ETs might be interested in humans who can lucid dream?
He claims that certain extraterrestrial beings, particularly those referred to as greys, have a specific interest in humans who have developed the ability to lucid dream. He believes they see it as a sign of advanced consciousness and that they might be looking for individuals who possess this skill.
He even suggested that they might be trying to extract something from these individuals, whether it's their DNA, their energy, or their knowledge.
It's as if he's suggesting that there's a cosmic competition for consciousness, a struggle between those who seek to control and exploit this power and those who seek to nurture and expand it.
He even emphasized the importance of teaching children how to lucid dream and cultivate bliss, as if it were a vital skill for navigating the future.
Right. He believes that by fostering these abilities, we can empower future generations to tap into their full potential and create a more harmonious and conscious world.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything. This deep dive has been an incredible journey, filled with mind-bending concepts and thought-provoking questions. What are some of the key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the most important takeaway is the power of questioning conventional wisdom and exploring new perspectives. Dan Winter's ideas might not all be scientifically validated, but they offer a fresh way of looking at the world and our place in it. They encourage us to think outside the box and consider possibilities that we might have previously dismissed.
And to remember that there's still so much we don't know about consciousness, energy, and the mysteries of the universe.
Absolutely. This deep dive has been an invitation to expand our awareness and embrace the unknown.
So as we conclude this exploration of Dan Winter's fascinating ideas, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. If the ability to lucid dream is truly a key to unlocking greater consciousness and navigating the mysteries of life and death, what steps can you take to develop this skill? What practices or techniques might help you access this hidden potential within yourself?
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep dreaming. The journey of self-discovery is an endless adventure.
Until next time, dive deep.